made by NorSafe, the weekly inspection of the hooks involves, firstly, checking that the full wire is in tension and seated in the highest part of the hook, and that the safety pawl is in place. Then the position of the cam is checked by examination of the inspection window. It should look like this, with the cam pressing against the hook. If there is any dirt, salt or corrosion, this must be cleaned off. The same checks are done on the other hook. When both hooks have been checked, the release mechanism inside the lifeboat is inspected. Make sure that the safety pin is in place and that the release handle is in the fully locked position. Then the emergency release lever is inspected to ensure that it is in the green locked position. Double check that the mechanism is neither damaged nor requiring lubrication. For the monthly maintenance, the lifeboat needs to be either in the water or hung off. Once the weight of the lifeboat is on the hanging off wires, prepare to release the hooks by removing the safety pin. Then swing aside the hydrostatic release lever cover. Next, override the hydrostatic release by pushing the emergency release lever into the off position, the red area. Then operate the release handle. It's important that the handle operates 100% smoothly. The movement should be checked several times. Smooth movement means that the cables are in good condition. Oil the cables if there is any sign of moisture or salt deposit. Check that each hook can swing clear without binding at the pivot. Look closely for any wear at the cam hook interface. Then check that there is very little sideways movement of the hook in the assembly. Once that's done, the hook can be greased. It may be necessary to grease the cable where it is connected to the hook. First, remove the cover. Gloves will need to be taken off for this. To avoid the risk of saltwater corrosion, this should not be done when the boat is in the water. The full wire link is replaced in the hook. Then, the second hook is checked. Then, the release handle is operated to engage the hook. Ensure that the hydrostatic release is back in the on position. At this stage, the hooks are checked to ensure that they are engaged. Then, the safety pin is replaced in the release handle and the lifeboat can be lifted up and stowed. Once the procedure is complete and the lifeboat stowed, the maintenance log must be filled in. With the Hattika system, the weekly inspection starts by checking that the link is correctly positioned in the hook. Check that the long link to the fall is straight and is at the aft point of the hook. Then the indicator at the side of the hook assembly is checked. This shows the cam or locking bolt position, and the mark on the disc must be no more than 5 degrees off the corresponding mark on the hook assembly. Then the position of the cam against the hook is double-checked by looking inside the hook assembly. The cam must be directly against the hook. Ensure that the safety pawl is fully closed to prevent the link slipping out. Both hooks must be checked. Once inside, the release handle is checked. First, that it is in the secured position, then that the safety pin is in place and easy to move. The hydrostatic release is confirmed as being locked and should look like this. Its safety glass must be intact. Finally, record your inspection in the ship's maintenance log. If you have found any defects, be sure to note them in the report and notify a senior officer. The regular maintenance is done every 3 months while the boat is in the water after its 3-monthly launching. Once the weekly checks have been done, including checking the position of the cams or locking bolts, the boat is lowered to the water. The hydrostatic release operates, opening up. The release lever is operated slowly so that the simultaneous release of the 2 hooks can be checked visually. The release handle is operated a few times to verify its free movement. This checks that the cables are in good condition. Then, the action of the 2 hook assemblies is checked by opening each hook by hand and seeing if it returns by itself to the correct position. The hook is cleaned and the face of it checked for wear. Then, the cam inside the assembly is examined for wear. Once done, the free movement of the safety pawl is checked before the hook is reset and the long link inserted. Once the lifeboat has been stowed, the hook assemblies are greased. At this stage, the weekly checks should be repeated to double-check that everything is as it should be. With the FASMA system, weekly inspection starts by checking that the hook is correctly located. On lower weight lifeboat systems, this is done by checking that the triangle marking on the hook is lined up with the notch on the assembly. With higher weight lifeboat systems, check that no part of the hook is visible through the inspection hole. Then check that the release bolt is in its locked position. Its marking must correspond to the green OK arrow on the case. Next, check that the long link to the fall is straight and is at the aft point of the hook. Ensure that the safety pawl is fully closed to prevent the link slipping out. Both hooks must be checked. Once inside, the release handle is checked. First, that it is in the secured position, then that the shackle bolt is closed and that the safety glass is intact. Ensure that the safety hook of the hydrostatic release is totally closed and that the indicator shows red. Finally, record your inspection in the ship's maintenance log. If you have found any defects, be sure to note them in the report and notify a senior officer. The regular maintenance is done every 3 months while the boat is in the water, after its 3-monthly launching. Once the weekly checks have been done, the boat is lowered to the water. The hydrostatic release operates, changing the indicator to green. The release lever is operated slowly so that the simultaneous release of the 2 hooks can be checked visually. The bolts around the hook assembly are checked. The release handle is operated a few times to verify its free movement. This checks that the cables are in good condition. Then, the action of the 2 hook assemblies is checked by opening each hook by hand and seeing if it returns by itself to the correct position. Then, the interlock safety device is checked by holding the hook a little open and seeing if the release handle can be returned to the closed position. If there is resistance, the device is operating correctly. After reconnecting the hooks and lifting the lifeboat out of the water, the hydrostatic release indicator is watched to check that it returns to red. Once the lifeboat has been stowed, the hook assemblies are greased. In some systems, the hydrostatic release has a diaphragm. This diaphragm must be serviced once a year. To do this requires taking the hydrostatic unit apart, and this can only be done while the lifeboat is hung off. Its correct maintenance is very important. It requires trained personnel taking care and paying close attention to the manufacturer's manuals. The idea is to disconnect the hydrostatic release from the system. Then, remove the top of it and remove the diaphragm. Generally, the diaphragm is replaced every year with these systems. Be certain that you are replacing it with the correct manufacturer's replacement part. Check the cable for free movement. Then, if everything is as it should be, reassemble the release according to the manufacturer's instructions. The principles of good maintenance of lifeboat on-load release systems are the same as for all maintenance tasks. First, understand why the maintenance needs to be done, and then learn how to do it. Proper training is essential for the maintenance of these systems and is mandatory under SOLAS. If the manufacturer's manuals are not available on your ship, ask the master to get new copies well before the maintenance becomes due. Then there will be time to read them and remind yourself of what is required before starting. Never attempt any maintenance without reference to the manufacturer's manuals. And always use the components with the correct specifications from the original manufacturer. Carry out the maintenance strictly according to the manufacturer's recommendations. Keep to the scheduling required by SOLAS. Always record the inspections and maintenance procedures in the ship's maintenance logs. There is a 5-yearly test of the lifeboat system required by SOLAS, but this can only be done in a shipyard and should not be undertaken by ship's personnel.
Open the cover.
With good maintenance, these lifeboats will be able to serve their purpose effectively, saving lives in an emergency. Proper maintenance of the release gear of the lifeboat is a vitally important job. Make sure that you give it the attention and care it deserves.